My name's Professor Keith Baar. I'm a professor of molecular exercise physiology here at the University of California, Davis, and we're in our strength physiology laboratory here, and we're just considering some of the things that would happen with people who are maybe older or have some sort of metabolic disease or are just beginning to start exercise. And before they jump into using some of the state-of-the-art equipment that we would have here, what we would probably suggest for them to do is to do some beginning exercises which are going to get them to the point where they can really see the maximal progression in their strength once they start their exercise. So just so that we're clear, so isometric holds. Isometric means same length. And so what that means is that we're going to do a movement that has no movement. So what we're doing is we're holding a position and we're keeping the joints that we're concerned with still for a period of time. But in order to do that, our muscle has to progressively work harder because our tendons begin to relax in that position. So as the tendon relaxes, the muscle has to contract, and that's why our muscles start to burn and we get this feeling that we're working really hard, even though all we're doing is staying in the same position. For the first one, it's just a lunge, so we get into a long step. And then at the beginning, we're just going to put a lot of our weight on our chair, and we're going to bend our front leg to 90 degrees or so, and we're going to bring our back leg down. So I would first start this with a good amount of weight on my chair. And what I should feel is I should feel tension in my patellar tendon, my quad tendon on this side, as well as on the other side. And then what I'm going to do as I progress is when I get stronger, I just use one hand on the chair, maybe for a little bit of balance. And then as I progress further, I'm going to have my hands up. And what I want to do is I want to be able to hold this position for about 10 seconds, and then at least 10 seconds. So then what I'm going to do is progressively, as I get stronger, I'm going to be into this position. Once I get into this position, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for up to 30 seconds. And what that's doing is that's giving me a lot of load through these different tendons, and the muscles, I'll feel a lot of strength, or I'll feel a lot of tension, and it'll become progressively harder the longer I hold it. And so really, if I've got other problems, say I've got an Achilles tendon problem, what I do is I move this front knee forward more, and now I get more load through my Achilles tendon. And so now what I can do is I can manipulate what's feeling sore today. And just by doing these isometrics, they actually have what's called an analgesic effect, which is they decrease pain through that joint over time. So if I hold that isometric for 30 seconds, for the next 2 to 3 hours, I'm actually going to feel less pain through that joint. Okay, so you go, again, progressive, use the chair as much as you need to. Once you get strong enough to do it without the chair, now one hand, then progressively no hands, and that's a really good one to get. Again, the patellar and quad tendons, a little bit on the Achilles tendon. All right. The second one is very similar. You just stand with your feet shoulder width apart, your feet facing out a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to build up to a squat. So I'll show you what we're going to build to. So I'm just going to come down like this. And again, this is going to be something we can progress to. So at the beginning, again, lots of weight on the chair. Going to come down. I'm going to try and get my, again, knees a little bit over my toes, and I'm just going to try and sit back and hold that position while I've got good support from my chair. As I get stronger, now I only need one hand, maybe for a little bit of balance. And as I get progressively stronger, I come down, I hold it in any position here, and I can hold this now again for 10 seconds if my tendons are all healthy. I can go longer if I want to give them a strengthening stimulus. But again, this is kind of classic type of isometric training. Then I'm going to slowly lift up at the end, and that's going to give me my progressive, load through those tendons. All right, so those are two that I would do for the lower body. For the upper body, I can just do it fairly simply as well. I can just do it as almost as a push-up using my chair. Okay, I can progressively come down. Then I'm just going to hold it there. And again, if I need more, because that's too hard, I just make the angle a little bit stronger. I can use a table. I can use something taller, and I'm just trying to hold it there. That's giving me a good stimulus through the tendons of my shoulders, my chest, and my elbows. Okay, as you progress, you can go progressively more into a lower position, because that's going to be harder. You can progress to a flatter position. So now I can go more in a low position here. Or you can go down onto the floor, the classic kind of plank position, where you go into that push-up position. But what I'm going to do, instead of doing multiple push-ups, I'm going to go down and I'm going to hold it in that position. The key and most important thing is that the load is not the key component for adaptation. So if we want to get stronger, we a lot of times need to lift a heavy load. What we just had a study come out, especially in rock climbers who use the tendons of their hands, there they use only partial body weight, so about 40% of their body weight, and they just would hang for 10 seconds like we're talking about for these isometrics. So if I was going to do that here again for my lunge, come down, I'm going to hold that for my 10 seconds, I don't need to have lots and lots of weight on me, because the weight didn't actually change how much strength improved. If we had people lifting really heavy weight versus people who had only part of their body weight, their strength gain was exactly the same. And so what that suggests to us is that we don't have to put lots and lots of load in these. So that's why I can do my isometric push-up, even though I can do lots of push-ups, I can do my isometric push-up without using a lot of weight, because I know that if I hold it for about that 10 seconds, I'm getting a good stimulus for the tendons in my triceps, in my shoulders, and in my chest to adapt and get stronger. So a couple of takeaways from today. One is that, yes, it's really great if you can lift a heavy weight, but that's not necessarily the most important thing for most of us. We get almost a similar strength gain from when we just do light weights, but we hold them for longer periods of time. And that's really important, because when we do those holds, we don't get a lot of the muscle soreness that we would experience if we were to be lifting weights actively in a dynamic way. And that's really important, especially in people with metabolic disease and people who are older, because in those populations we actually see more muscle damage than we do in young people. And so that's why for older individuals, using isometric holds can actually be a way that they can build their strength without getting a lot of the muscle soreness.